Hi, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, kindly. My name is Andrew from Sprout Social. For those of you that are not familiar with that, we are a social media management software. So businesses use our software to manage Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on, all from one place. So I'm really happy to be here along with Naomi, who's fantastic from Monarch. I'll let her introduce herself briefly, and then we'll get going.
Hi everyone, my name is Naomi. I am from Monarch. We are a tour operator. We are partly airline and holidays. I'm a social media executive. I've been with Monarch for about 2 years, and I'm excited to share some of my tips and knowledge with you.
Fantastic. So, that's us, if you didn't get us. Naomi, if you could just sort of kick off, I think, how many of you are familiar with Monarch? Have you flown Monarch before? Almost everybody. Fantastic.
Wow.
If you could just talk a little bit about, and we'll get into specifically some of the things you're doing on Twitter, but could you talk a little about your social strategy in general and how you've decided to sort of parse out all the different channels between Facebook, Twitter, and so on, and where you sort of start when it comes to social?
Sure. So just to give you guys a bit of a background about the company and our team when it comes to social. So the company is quite old. We turned 49 this year. So we are the longest serving airline in the UK. When it comes to social, it was introduced about 5 or 6 years ago. And the way the team is structured, we have a customer service team that will manage all the customer inquiries that will come in. It's a team of about 6 or 7 people that will sort of take turns into replying one day each. And then it's myself and my manager who will sort of oversee the customer services side plus sort of the wider strategy. The typical customer for Monarch is a sort of older audience. So let's say there are about 50 plus. And this is widely, it reflects on Facebook mainly. But when it comes to Twitter and Instagram, which we are also active on, the audience is a lot younger. And when it comes to content and how we speak to customers, then we always need to think of who we're talking to. Are we talking to an older audience? Are we talking to a younger audience? And how are they going to react to the different types of content that we push out?
And when it comes to thinking through the younger audiences, obviously, as you said, you're the oldest airline and continual running airline in the UK. How do you stay young? Like, if you think about the fact that you've been around a long time, a lot of people are aware of you. You've got sort of that varying customer base of people that are generationally older. But if you think about that sliver of the market, which is growing, obviously, in terms of people who are flying and utilizing you, what are some of the key sort of drivers or emotional components that you're trying to trigger when you are dealing with millennials?
So for us, it's really important to keep experimenting. Social is a really unique position to sort of try out new things that you not necessarily can't do on other channels. So something that we have developed, especially in the past year or so, is 360 videos. Hands up who's seen a 360 videos and like have a look around. I think it's really cool. It works really well for us, especially when it comes to destinations. You can really showcase your product really well with a 360 video. Something else that we try to do, especially when it comes to millennials, is try to jump on trends. If there's any topic on the news or if it's a national day that we can kind of relate to, then we will jump on it and sort of try to make ourselves relevant. Something else that we try to do is sort of chatbots, which we have just started to introduce through Sprout. And there's always new things that come out. VR is going to be a really big thing for us coming up in the next year. And for us, it's all about trying out new things and not be afraid of sort of pushing our limit a little bit. And again, this is something that's quite unique to social.
So one of the things I think a lot of us can probably relate to when it comes to the airline and the travel industry is that a lot of times conversations that take place on social or questions that come in potentially may be about negative experiences, a flight delay, weather issues, all sorts of things. How do you balance out what you're trying to do? And we'll get into some of the customer service feedback in a moment, but how do you sort of balance the negatives and the positives and create good experiences for people on social and as well?
Okay, so with our customer services team, we make a really big point of asking them to reply to all feedback, whether it's negative or positive. And unfortunately, it's a known fact. People usually come to Facebook or Twitter, doesn't matter the age, they usually come to, I have a bit of a complaint when it comes to a brand. However, thankfully, because we are so well established and people kind of like us, luckily, we do get quite nice feedback as well. And sometimes it's easy to forget it when our teams are so busy sort of addressing the negative comments. But it's so important that we always reply to the good stuff, because that's how we create advocates. And that's who are going to help us in times of, when we're going through a hard patch or people are complaining. These people that we are replying to that have left good feedback, they will be the ones helping out when it comes to this point.
So I want to talk specifically about Twitter and some of the things that they're doing and some of the tools that Monarch has been implementing around customer service. And one of the things that at Sprout we do a lot, and we work very closely with Twitter, is on some of the things and the experiences that they're creating when it comes to direct messages. But first I want to talk and get some of Naomi's perspectives on this idea of starting with exceptional customer service at the very beginning, because what leads to feedback and some of the Twitter components that we'll talk about in a second really sort of depend on how you level set expectations around customer service. So as a team, and something that maybe everyone can take away here, how do you organize yourselves around the expectations that you're going to deliver when it comes to customer service, and what sort of goals have you set for yourselves as an organization in that?
Okay, so if we're talking practical, this is aligned to everything that comes from the customer service team. So not only sociable, phones, emails, etc. We always aim to respond to our customers within 45 minutes. Ideally, especially on Twitter, we would like a quicker response, but that's the limit we give ourselves. And that's all about managing expectations. So customers, when they come to us, they expect this, and we need to deliver. We also have certain opening times. We make that very clear to our customers so they know if they come after a certain time, they won't get a response until the next morning, unless it's an exceptional case. And the thing, especially with Monarch, is because customer service is so important for us, and it's a key selling point for us. So people do expect excellent customer services. So we need to deliver it. And yeah, that's how we do it. We try to manage expectation and sort of try to go above and beyond whenever we can.
And one of the things, for those of you that are familiar, maybe perhaps use Twitter for your customer service, there are a number of features within the profile of Twitter that you are able to kind of manage. So Naomi mentioned putting business hours. There's a few things. If you go within your Twitter dashboard, you're able to actually manage and set expectations. You can ask and set a button where people can direct message you without having to follow them and follow back. You can set some business hours and manage some expectations and say, we're typically available between 9 and 5 or whatever the case may be. It doesn't mean that you can't respond during those other times, but Twitter has really taken an active approach to manage that business profile setting a bit more and give people greater visibility into what they can expect you to do on Twitter and how quickly to respond. I wanted to go through and sort of show a little bit of some of the numbers. So one of the things that we've been working closely with Monarch on from the start is improving and getting a better gauge of customer service via Twitter. So if you think about a lot of times when people are asking for responses via email, via phone calls, all the kinds of customer service channels that are readily available, there hasn't been traditionally a lot of ways where you can actually get that same kind of feedback from a social interaction. So one of the things that Twitter has done in the last 6 to 10 months is develop something that they call Twitter feedback. And it's a really cool mechanism that allows the agent or whoever is managing the Twitter conversation, once they've completed the issue or they've resolved the issue, to send very quickly through a direct message a quick feedback question, either in CSAT or Net Promoter Score. So you can do 1 through 10 or 5 visual emojis. The end user, the Twitter user, is able to rate that experience, and then that data comes back into the platform, in this case through Sprout, so Naomi and her team can actually see on an individual basis how people react and rate, their interactions on Twitter. So it's thinking through from a procedural standpoint the same kind of methodology that a lot of businesses have used on email and on call centers into bringing that into the social space, and it's something that they've launched quite successfully. Can you talk a little bit about, and we've got some of the data points up here, but some of the success that you've seen with that mechanism and having that in place in the last several months?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as Andrew mentioned, it's a really good tool to sort of measure how well you're doing, how well your team are doing, and if there's any room for improvement. And I think asking for feedback is one of the most important things we could ever do when it comes to customer service on social. We need to know how we can improve, and we can't do that unless we ask our customers what they think about our communications and what we've been telling them. So it's really useful when it comes to training as well. If we see a pattern for any agents, maybe we can pick it up and talk to them and see how we can sort of resolve any doubts they might have. So when it comes to the feedback that we have been reporting on Sprout, it's really good for our upper management as well to see. It gives us really good visibility in terms of how well we're doing and what are the main issues that are coming up and how can we work on them and how can we resolve them.
And do you provide any specific training so the way that the team works is they've got Naomi and a few others in marketing, but they also have their entire customer service team managing social conversations as well. Have you given them specific training, or what advice would you have for those in the audience that are maybe trying to integrate customer service and marketing a bit more? How have you developed that relationship with each other a bit more?
It's just about communications. The guys have full visibility. So just to give a bit of background, I handle the content for the pages. The customer service team don't. They just reply to the queries. But they always have full visibility of what my plans are, so they kind of prepare for what's coming. They might see a spike in incoming queries. They will know why. And when it comes to replying to people, the training that we provide to the customer service team is all about tone of voice and remember who you're talking to. So this goes back to the audience that we have on the different channels. Remember that you're talking to a different audience on Facebook than to who you're speaking to on Twitter. You need to be able to adapt and be flexible with how you communicate to your customers.
When it comes to analyzing some of this data that you guys now have accessibility to, how do you guys look at sort of success? I mean, some of the things we've got up here in terms of just the general increase of Twitter DMs is important because it means that people are reaching out to you in that fashion. So that's kind of a nice uptick in behavior. When it comes to sort of the decrease in reply thread size, if you think about resolving issues, is it important for you guys as a business to try to get to the bottom of whatever the issue is as quickly as possible? And how has that changed in the use of Twitter and social versus other channels?
Definitely. So about the DMs, Twitter introduced this really handy tool that we use through Sprout where we can literally send a link to our customers to send us a DM directly instead of asking them, oh, can you click on direct message? Which makes it a lot easier, and I think that's responsible for a lot of that percentage. What was the question?
It was how quickly or how important is it to reduce the number of conversations you have back and forth with people?
So for us, it's really important to be to the point, to make sure that we do address every single issue or query that is raised by the customer, but we don't want really long replies that people might be able to see and get confused with. As long as we are to the point and we keep really polite but short and sweet, that's really important to us. And then obviously means that we are optimizing our time, so we have more time to reply to more people. But obviously it really shows that we are really effective in our communication as well.
How do you sort of gauge between the conversations that you want to keep public versus the conversations that you want to take private? If you think a lot about customer service, and certainly in the airline industry, there's probably a lot of issues that could easily blow up, as you've all seen. There's obviously been a lot of conversations about that in recent days and weeks, certainly in the US where I'm based. Do you think about that on an ongoing basis in terms of what are the kinds of issues that you want to deal with publicly versus what are the ones you want to deal with privately, and how do you navigate that as a business?
Yeah, so a lot of the queries that come involve sharing our customers' data. So everything involves, say for the airline, would be booking references, email addresses. Obviously, we don't want to share that with the public. So when it comes to that, we always try to take it privately. There are some issues that can be resolved there and then that can be kept public. But obviously, when it comes to a bigger sort of complaint or worry or doubt that someone might have, we try to take it offline or try to take it privately, just because we might have to explain a bit more details, and it's something that we wouldn't necessarily want everyone to see or engage with.
So the last number before we move on, I want to address on is a little bit of the idea of Net Promoter Score and the satisfaction that people are seeing. Because you've got more data at your fingertips now through social and through other channels, how important is it to you to keep improving that number? And what are some of the steps you guys are taking to make sure that with every interaction, people are more satisfied and rating you positively? Is that something that you're cognizant of as a team day in and day out? Is that, are there goals that you set maybe with the customer service team? What are some suggestions you would have for people who are trying to accomplish the same thing?
Yes, definitely. So improving is everyone's goal. So it's the same for us. I think sometimes complaints can't be resolved, and that's a fact. We can't make everyone happy, but I think it's just making sure that we have tried everything, we have addressed everything, we have done absolutely everything we can to help the person that has come to us. And I think really that's the only advice I can give, is make sure that you're doing everything you can and you're addressing everything, and that you're going out of your way to help the person. Because I think everyone that comes to a brand with an issue, they can see what you're doing for them, and they can see whether you are going out of your way or if you're just giving them sort of a standard response. And people can see through that, especially on social. So I think it's really important to show that we care.
Does anybody have any questions about social customer care or some of the Twitter components that we've been talking about recently? Yeah. Oh, I think we've got a microphone coming, if you could wait 1 second.
Hi, I'm Martin. Have you seen a decrease in the ratio of calls to social interactions, and has there been a cost benefit with that overall?
It depends on the situation. So if you're talking day to day, not massively. But when it comes to difficult situations, so if we're talking about disruption to operation or incidents that sort of are on a bigger scale, then yes. I'll give you an example. So many of you might remember the incident that happened in Sharm el-Sheikh. It was almost 2 years ago now. We had to repatriate hundreds of people back to the UK. And the customer services team just couldn't take the calls because it was too much. So everyone, including the press, used to come to social. So that's where social really made a difference. Because the volume of queries that we were handling were massively higher on social than any other channel. And that's, I guess, it was a really good thing for us to also prove to the upper management that social really can make a difference when it comes to these things.
Question over here.
Hi. Did you say that your existing CS team became the social CS team?
So they are part of the main customer service team.
Yeah.
So they will handle phone, emails, letters, etc.
Okay.
But when they are on social shift, they just do social media.
Okay. And do you, as a social marketing person, get involved with the recruitment of those agents?
No, we don't.
You don't?
No.
I'm curious about how you make sure you find the right people, because it's a different, a CS phone person and a social CS, they're kind of different profiles, and it's very hard to find, I guess, those switch hitters. So I just wondered how you guys went about that.
Less so specific to Monarch, but even with a lot of the other brands that we work with, there are definitely profiles and skill sets that people are looking for, and the question often becomes, is it easier to train marketing people on some of the customer service product issues and knowledge and the things that they would need to answer those things on social, or is it easier to train the customer service teams on the use of social? and sort of the difference. And we've seen customers and brands do it both ways. My personal preference, or sort of the recommendation I would say, is to teach and to find customer service representatives who are comfortable on social. I think just personality-wise and from a personal standpoint, so many people use social as individuals, regardless of what their job is, that there's a propensity for them to sort of adapt. Because they've got, from a customer support standpoint, the skill set and the knowledge base that they need to answer very intricate questions and things like that, that's a higher touch sort of component, and there's more training involved in that.
Yeah.
That's sort of been what we've seen, I think, in the majority of the cases. But it really depends on what's going to work best for your organization, right? And who's
I guess the UK organization, you'll have highly skilled English writers in place.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many considerations, right? Everything from comfort level on social to language capabilities to product knowledge or to service knowledge, whatever you need to address. It really is a multifaceted question, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, from our perspective, we liaise really closely with the customer service management. So when they put forward an agent that they think will be suitable for social, we'll be able to go through training with them and then suggest whether we think they will be suitable for social or not.
Okay. I had one more quick question about, did you guys, because you mentioned that the majority of your audience is 50 plus and tend to be on Facebook. So I was just wondering why Twitter was the focus of this talk. Is that something that's made a big change for the org?
Yeah, it's made a big change, and part of what we're working on together is sort of how do we address the different segments of the marketplace and sort of getting into more of the millennial-focused conversations, and that tends to be, for them, more on Twitter than on Facebook. So that's...
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So I would love for you to give us a little bit of we talked a bit about customer service and some of the efforts on Twitter, for you to share a little bit in terms of some of the approaches that you take when it comes to creating content and sort of understanding what's happening within sort of the social sphere for you. Could you maybe talk a little bit about some of the approaches that you take and what we've got here? Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, obviously everything revolves around our audience. So we are really data focused. The data that we have about our customers and the feedback that we get, that's what we use to sort of engage back with them. So as I mentioned earlier, we do try to jump on trends when they are relevant. Andrew mentioned some issues with American Airlines recently. So that was a really good opportunity for us to remind our customers that we don't overbook. And that's just a really small example of how we can sort of keep relevant and keep the customers engaged when there's a big topic that everyone's talking about. Something else that we did last year was jumping on sort of a trend around kindness. So there have been a few kindness days going around, and because our customer service is a big focus for us, and our previous TV ad, I don't know if anyone's seen it, was about our crew trying to go out of their way. We did a lot of activity on social media around this, around our crew, and around the fact that they're happy to help our customers. We have different ways that we can also keep our content engaging. I mentioned earlier we have the 360 videos, and we are trying to take them into VR. We have live chats, which have been a really, really massive success for us in the past year. And we're always happy to experiment. When it comes to customer service, as I mentioned earlier, we are trying to sort of dip into chatbots and see how that works and how our customers react to those.
So I wanted to have Naomi talk a little bit about a couple of examples that she's got here of some of the videos and things that they've done. Part of the concept of customer service and working with things is to kind of create some proactive messaging as well. And they've done a really great job of sort of utilizing some of the people and players that they have at their disposal to create some content that helps engage people in a way that can hopefully not only educate people but potentially sort of negate issues before they even arise. So some of the things that you guys have talked about, maybe there's a couple examples you can share.
So just up here. So I mentioned the 360 videos. We have launched a few new destinations which are not really typical of Monarch. When you think of Monarch, you think beach and Mediterranean, but Stockholm is one of our newest destinations. So we really wanted to show why we chose Stockholm. So we thought the 360 videos were a really good way to do so. I also mentioned live chats. So we recently did one with one of our pilots. We got questions in, and he was just replying to them as they came. And it was a really good way to engage. And I think it worked really well for us because it captured or it engaged our usual audience, but millennials as well were very interested in interacting.
And then also you've done quite a bit of work in terms of how you actually manage relationships and the way that you guys take from an approach standpoint, and you call it relationship-based social customer care. Can you talk a little about what that looks like and how you train people and how you actually engage with people in a way that's relationship-based?
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier we have a long heritage, and there's a lot of loyal customers that have been with us for years and years and years. And a way we keep that up on social, as I mentioned earlier, is we reply to every single feedback we get. We don't ignore anyone at all, whether it's just a thank you or whether it's oh, I had a nice flight. We always interact with them, and that's how we keep the good relationship with our customers. We have other ways we can sort of keep a good relationship. For us, it's competitions. We try to give something back to the customer, and this is really well received. The examples I have here, back in September, I don't know if anyone might remember, Monarch went through a sort of license renewal, and there were a lot of talks around what was going on. And then when we finally announced that we had renewed our license, etc., we got inundated with really nice comments. And I really believe that's because we always kept everyone updated. We replied to everyone, even though there were hundreds of questions coming up. And these are just a few examples of the comments that we received of people saying, you know, I'm happy you stay here, and, you know, I'm looking forward to using you again.
So when it comes to sort of some final thoughts, we've got a few minutes and we'll take some questions. What is some of your strategic advice in terms of people who are maybe trying to address social customer care on Twitter and other networks, of where to begin, or what are some of the key points that you would say to think about as you work with your team to make it happen?
I would say the biggest thing is ask for feedback. There are so many ways that you can do so. You can just ask up front. You can do polls, surveys, use the feedback tool on Twitter. Everything you do is for your customers, and you can't do it well unless you ask them what they like and what works for them. And I think really that's the biggest advice I can give. Address everything that you receive, build relationships with your customers, and ask them what they're looking for. And that's the only way I think the team can improve.
Do you have any other questions for Naomi?
Oh, hi, my name is Ravi. Thanks. Just a little bit about chatbots and trying to automate some of this in terms of your strategy and what you're doing.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're working very closely with Twitter on is how do we sort of augment that experience. I think from a chatbot standpoint, a lot of people want to, you know, they're interested in it, but they're also a little hesitant on it. So I know that part of what we're working with Twitter is sort of the idea of augmented automation. So you're not fully automated anything. There's got to be a human experience to it. And we've launched a couple of sort of automation sort of chatbot-light components, if you will, within our platform that supports that, the ability to do that and to automate some of the initial parts of the conversations using chatbots. We're going to continue to sort of explore options with Twitter on how to do that and sort of launch some additional things in the future. But it's a touchy subject because you don't want to necessarily remove the human element, especially when you're talking about customer service. That's very important. So it just depends.
Hello, my name is Carlota, and I wanted to ask, how different do you approach to millennials compared to your competitors? Okay.
I think a lot of it is, might sound really simple, but a lot of it is, I think, tone of voice is how you speak to them. I think you can be a lot more direct and in what you say, and you can be a bit cheeky, and you can use, fun ways to interact with them rather than you would to your normal customer or to your older customer, I think. And I think also jumping on trends, hashtags, I think is a really good way to engage with them.
And I think we're out of time. So thank you very much, Naomi, for all of your advice and insight, and thank you all for listening.